since we're talking about telling others and living the life, what is your feeling on social media? She's wired.
I'm wired for sound. I think social media is here to stay, clearly. Thank you to the next generations. I think it's a challenge for those of us who are 40 plus, and I've just made it, of course. Don't laugh.
There is life after 40, and indeed 50.
I think the challenge for us is actually to adapt and not be afraid of it. And what I've found in terms of dealing with that is actually having great mentors. I find these young guys are so prepared to mentor and coach us. You know, they want to stretch us so that we can grow. Take that opportunity. It scares the living daylights out of me every day, but do it.
So, Allanah, not talking about Tinder, because I know you wouldn't be anywhere near that. What do you use it for, and how do you see your messages getting out to others of the professional type?
On social media?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can honestly say I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I think, though, a lot of people my age do. We do spend a lot of time on social media, which is, I guess, is quite sad to say. It is a way to communicate, though. We share ideas on it. You see the latest trends that are coming up. On Facebook especially, you see the latest news or phases that are going around the world. It's quite powerful, I think, yeah.
So do you see a role in the farming side of things in terms of tracking food, remembering that we've tried looking at the barcode for icebreaker?
Yeah, I think so. That's a difficult question. There is a lot of farmers on Facebook. There's actually a page called New Zealand Farming Communities, and there's a lot of likes on that. There's a lot of discussion goes on as well. Someone will post a question, and there are a lot of replies, and it comes sometimes as quite heated debates that go on that. But it's definitely something that can be used.
Now, Anna, you're clear that we should be using it, but the downside could be?
I guess the big risk is reputational risk and things going up that we don't want to go up. And I guess my answer to that is, I've driven past piles of slinkies, as we all have, after a snowstorm. The thought of something like that going up on social media is horrifying. And I just don't think a farmer would do that any more than the most likely person to do that is a German tourist or something like that coming along and seeing them. So it's going to happen regardless in some shape or form. It's understanding if there's a big enough body of really positive stories out there and connectivity out there that will hopefully override a big story, a big breakout if it comes. And I picked up on, I think it was Dan's comment, someone made a comment before about the time it takes to monitor social media. And this is not my area of expertise, but I take that on board, that this is a real challenge for businesses and understanding that and how much they have to get into that. I don't know, I'd throw it out there maybe, Jacqueline, and ask a couple of people what they think who are, Sharon might have a comment on this. throw it at you, here's a halfback pass.
It's definitely something that we've thought very hard about. We're a branded house, so our corporate brand is Silverfern Farms, as well as our consumer brand. So anything that you do will be your reputation. I think the only thing I can say is you cannot be scared of it. It is the way of the future. It's how you deal with it when some of those things happen. And you have to have the right judgment and make the right judgment quickly. You need to be able to respond quickly, and don't do it unless you've got the resource to make sure that you are able to communicate well. With us, we've moved to internal resource as well as external advice, and it's about communicating on all your stakeholders, whether it's corporate, farmers, what we're doing with the plants, internal staff. We're using social media for all of those platforms.
Thank you, Sharon. Tony, do you have another question there? Yeah.
Janet Gregory, Lincoln Trust. I just wanted to make a comment. I'm on Twitter and Facebook. I'm on the 50 plus age group, so yeah, quite outside the range. But I use it to support farmers in what they're doing and help tell their stories. So it's about positive things that they're doing, always promoting some of the activities that we're doing together, whether it's workshops coming up or field days, that sort of thing as well. And somebody mentioned it earlier, it's also about the personal things that you talk about through the day. It's that a little bit extra that you give of yourself, so you're actually building a relationship with all your followers. And so it's those little things that tell a wee bit more about yourself. So a lot of the time people will say, my thoughts are my own, rather than the individual organisation that you might have linked to your Twitter label. And that gives you an opportunity to give more of yourself and build those relationships. So it's not just about branding your organisation, it's about telling a bit about yourself and what you're passionate about and about those stories of others. And I think that's really powerful as well.
Thank you very much. So with that passion, what is the role of diversity within your organisation that you've taken over now?
It's really interesting. In Abacus, there are 10 nationalities. There's about 40 people in 10 nationalities, and really, I'm one of the older ones. So in terms of, I guess, diverse thinking, it is really fantastic because you are always challenged with the way you think, whether it's about how you run the business or whether it's a decision you make on a particular project. But I would also throw out there that international collaboration is really, really critical for diverse thinking. And so hearing about the project before around ginseng and velvet antler is vital, because we will not understand what our consumers want or other companies want unless we actually work alongside them and have those ups and downs like you do in a business relationship when it's ups and downs like a marriage. But if you have those sort of international collaborations, it really helps sharpen up your own thinking and helps you to be more open-minded about your approach to life.
Thank you, Anna. Allanah, would you like to say anything there? Because you've been in teams, haven't you? Not just at varsity, but also in sporting.
What, diversity?
Diversity.
Diversity in teams. Yeah. I've been in a few sports teams, and I think diversity is a key factor of it. Having people from different backgrounds, different school levels, always makes your team more successful, I think, especially in group projects throughout university. I think even in our Agribusiness class at uni, we have a huge diversity amongst the cultures. I mean, we've got people from Jamaica there, Africa, all over the place. So
Building global networks.
yeah.
Thank you very much. And Sue, you have very clear ideas.
I do, and I will, just to say, I guess at the outset, I think diversity in every sense is an absolute imperative, diversity of thought. Just to put the gender bias on it, and I am not a raving feminist. I would not have survived in New Zealand agribusiness as long as I have, if I were.
I am, by the way.
I kind of am, but I'm an incognito. But just to say to you, I spoke at a professional service firm conference a week or so ago, and I was asked to speak about diversity, and I talked to them about a catalyst study out of the US that said that organisations that have at least one woman on their board were outperforming all others. I think there was about 16,000 organisations in the study globally by a minimum of 26% in terms of profitability. I'm not saying women are better, I'm saying we're different. And I think the challenge is that we think different and be different together. And that applies to all aspects of diversity. Think different, be different, and be open to challenging conversation together.
Glenn.
Glenn Tyrrell, Duncan, New Zealand, and this is probably aimed initially at Sue. Just a question. Oh, watch the chair. And great, as far as the inspirational leaders and what they've done. A lot of people I'm in the room here, manage small teams of people. And what would your advice be in terms of, they don't have a corporate structure, they don't have an HR department, the typical mistakes or the typical opportunities for somebody who was good at what they do, but now they're managing people doing what they used to do. What's the things that they should think about doing with those 2 or 3 people just to make a difference in terms of getting their engagement and bringing them along with their business?
I think that's a fabulous question, and I'm that person who's on the gritty front line, being my title as CEO, loosely translated, HR manager, manager of business development, and I wash the dishes as well. So I absolutely get that, and I think it was summarised in that slide that I put up in terms of what the teams that we've been working with over the last 12 months are saying in common, that we have to have that very clear sense of where we're going and why. We have to be able to communicate that. What is the purpose? And with a Gen Y, there will be, as there should be for any of us, what's in it for me? We have to be able to articulate that. I think we need to be able to allow ourselves the freedom to think and to plan. Don't you find that you never get a great idea when you're sitting at your desk or at the kitchen table going, I need a great idea? You get it when you're on the tractor or you're driving to town. You need to create the space and value that. Until about 3 weeks ago, I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing my research before 9 so that I could do real work. And then I thought, that's ridiculous, because that's real work. So be very clear, communicate well. If you want a copy of the slide set, let me know, because I think that slide has the answers. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, be clear, communicate, support, measurably help others to succeed.
And right, Ms. Angus. Tony, oh no, Tony's going somewhere else.
Thanks, Tony. We're running a hell of a complicated business. And so you've talked about keep it simple, keep it basic. There's even mention of get away from the number 8 wire mentality. New Zealand was built on number 8 wire mentality, and it's still going to live on that for a long time. But I think what all of us on farms find nowadays, we don't go out and just run our farms as people used to 20 years ago. We are bogged down with regulation. We have to spend all bloody day complying. We have to comply with OSH, we have to comply with NATE, we have to comply with councils, we have to comply with district councils, regional councils, it goes on and on. So we're not just making decisions about our business and maybe forming a partnership with a meat company and having a futuristic look about our marketing. We're actually struggling to get off the ground on our own farms, and it's really, really difficult, not getting any easier. A shortage of money is not helping. If we had more money, we could employ more help, and that would make our space for our thought processes a lot bigger than what it is now. It is a really, really serious issue in agriculture. And while these sort of discussions tend to make it relatively simplistic, it is not actually like that.
Andrew, do you have a question?
I suppose there's lots of questions.
Right, so that's going to be a dinner one, and Sharon Angus had her question. So this is the last question except for the Prime Minister's, right, this is the penultimate question except for the Prime Minister's, because we have to be out of here, guys. And we promised to get back on time. Sharon?
I suppose I don't think about it as you're talking about females versus males. I think it was very interesting, your percentages of who's making the decision-making process and the ones that we're doing. So I'm just really sort of like, it doesn't matter we're talking about, we just need to understand that they're different. And does anyone in the room know how many make the decision-making process that is for red meat? And it's 70%. So not the 80 or the 90, or not the 50 or the 40, but 70%. So it's about the fact of connecting with that person in the segment, which is why, Sue, I sort of, when you're talking about that, it's not really in the view that you're talking about, it's every segment is different. So I just wanted your perspective on that, because I don't think we need to be talking about female male. I wouldn't be in this industry if I was worried about that too much. So your perspective, it's about making sure we know who we need to connect with.
Absolutely, I think that's the imperative. I mean, it's an audience of one in today's world. We have this expectation that it's entirely relevant to me. It's all about me. And I agree with you entirely. I think in the household shopping scenario, it tends to be women that are making those decisions. There's no question, and I think what we're talking about is very broad. What you're looking at is diving right in and getting that pure understanding of your category, and that's absolutely imperative in responding accordingly. It's a changing world. I mean, I was reading something the other day that there's going to be a shift as we see Gen Y move through, where more men are in corporate roles and then stepping out and taking care of the family and their wives continuing to work. That's going to skew the household shopper. There's going to be a shift and change potentially as time goes on. So it's a moving target, and that's why you need these very specialist people on your team. That's what it's really all about.
Thank you, Sue. And our last question.
Kind of a rhetorical question. The room's largely full of men, and the question in a way I want to ask is, what advice would you give us when we're sitting here having run our businesses for many years, and now we have before us 4 incredibly young and articulate women who delivered a very clear message to us as to a better way of running our business? Thank you.
I like you. You said young.
I'm not.
Anna.
Take us seriously is my only advice. There's nothing worse as a woman in agribusiness than having a paternalistic type pat on the head person speaking with me. So don't write us off. And there are many, many men who do not do that. But boy, the ones that do, you pick it within a minute. So take us seriously and respect us just as you would any person, male, female, Asian, whatever.
So when I went through varsity, it was 15% of the class, the cohort were female. When Anna went through, it was about 50. And now that Allanah's going through, it's 68% are female. So you can get used to it. And our final question to Sue. Have you got the Prime Minister one? No. To Sue. If you had one question to ask the Prime Minister to enable him to fix this, what would you do?
Or shall I finish it off the way that I started? How will the government encourage more women to become actively involved in New Zealand agribusiness? Obviously, the government have targets around women, around board tables. What can they do to support more women with full engagement in New Zealand agribusiness for that diversity of thought?
Thank you very much, Sue. So we have the business mentor, the next generation, and the person who's achieving it right at the moment. Congratulations and thank you to you all.
If you could just wait there a little second, Sue. I think you'll all agree that we've had a great presentation here from 4 very talented people who just happen to be women. But I think at times it was brutal, and that's exactly what we needed. And I think one of the take-home lessons we've learned out of the advanced party, I know you didn't all hear that yesterday, but in Paddy Boyd's session, one of the key things we've taken out of the advanced parties is the engagement of both business partners. Sometimes it's the husband and wife, or it might be a father and daughter, or whatever the combination is, has added another layer of creativeness and decision-making ability into those farming businesses. And I think that's what you've demonstrated very well to us. So very much appreciated, and just like to give you a small token of appreciation.